celebrations tonight in Lima and across the country. And those celebrations can start now as referee Fernando Rapalini blows for time. Peru came into this game under a bit of pressure, but knowing that if they got the job done, they would clinch fifth spot.
Jubilant scenes in Peru Tuesday night as the country sealed a World Cup playoff spot with a 2-0 victory over Paraguay. An early goal from the Italy-born striker Gianluca Lapadula helped ease the nerves on a night where Chile and Colombia were hoping Peru would slip up. Let's get a look now at the results from the final round of the South American World Cup qualifiers, known as CONMEBOL. Brazil 4-0 over Bolivia. 2-0 for Uruguay over Chile. Ecuador 1-1 with Argentina. There's the Peru victory over Paraguay, and Colombia defeating Venezuela by 1-0. And this is how the table looks after those matches. Brazil qualified months ago, top of the table with 45 points, 6 in front of Argentina on 39. Uruguay and Ecuador filling the next two automatic qualifying spots. There are 4 CONMEBOL teams with automatic spots, 28 and 25 points respectively for Uruguay and Ecuador. And there's Peru in 5th spot, securing that Interconfederation playoff spot, just 1 point ahead of Colombia. And their goal difference -3, you see there, Colombia behind them and failing to make the playoffs with a +1 goal difference. So Colombia will feel hurt that they won't make it to at least an opportunity to play off to get to Qatar. Now Peru will meet either the United Arab Emirates or Australia in an Interconfederation playoff match in Doha. That match is scheduled for mid-June, the 13th or 14th. And we are pleased to be joined by our South American football expert, Juan G. Arango. Juan, we saw the celebrations there in Peru. Good on them. Colombia was right there waiting to pounce, and Peru made sure that they did what they had to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. People forget one thing, Lance, though, about Peru. 5 rounds into this World Cup qualifying tournament, they had 1 point. They were dead last. People were already writing them off. And more importantly, they already talked about Ricardo Gareca being able to start looking for employment elsewhere, or the possibility of him looking for employment elsewhere. Since then, they were one of the hotter teams in South American football, not named Brazil or Argentina, obviously. And part of the reason why, well, they've been able to get in that 5th place spot.
Yeah. Now, should Chile or how much should Chile and Colombia feel disappointed by falling short? I just mentioned that Colombia actually have a better goal difference than the Peruvians have. Well, let's start there. Well,
yeah, they have a better goal difference, but they didn't score in 674 minutes. So that's a problem right there. You can go back to 2002 when Colombia in the last round beat Paraguay 5-0, yet Uruguay was still able to get through by 1 goal. If you start looking, if at any time in those 7 matches Colombia would have scored 1 goal, they might be in 5th place. They might even been in 4th place if you really start looking at it from that perspective. But they didn't, and they failed miserably. And a lot of the blame in the Colombian end can go in the direction of the players. A great deal of it has to go to the players. A great deal has to be with the schemes and the tactics that Reinaldo Rueda used. They seemed very cowardly. They seemed very scared. They seemed more to not lose than to try and go and win. And of course, the board who sacked Jose Pekerman because, well, they just didn't want to pay him. They just didn't think it was a good investment. The coach that took them to the quarterfinals of a World Cup, that took them to 2 consecutive World Cups, and had them playing some of the best football in nearly 25 years. So where do we start pointing the blame? That's really where we have to start looking at it.
Juan, as I looked at the highlights just now, so many of the Peruvian players who we saw in that game on Wednesday night, on Tuesday night rather, are players that I remember so well from 2015 when we did that Copa America, the 2016 edition as well, and there's just a line drawn through. But there are some key additions. What you spoke about how few points they picked up early. I was the one of those who wrote them off. Myself and Brent Sanchez said, well, Chile did, Peru did. You as well, yes, because you were part of that conversation. So we both said that Peru was dead, and that I think I said Chile was dead as well. Proven right on that count, but Peru have proven me wrong. I'm happy. Just how has Ricardo Gareca, freshened up this team and caused them to be rejuvenated to the point where they have it in their own hands, in their own destiny, to get to Qatar?
It's one of these cases, we go back to 2018. They also had a slow start, but eventually towards the end, they're a team that in these types of situations in the past few cycles, they start out slow and then they start building towards the end. They've been able to solidify themselves defensively. And as you said, George, you start going back to 2015, it's a lot of the same names, except up top. You haven't heard about the Raul Redias. You were obviously nowhere close to hearing about Gianluca Lapadula. He was somewhere in the second division of Italy thinking about, well, yeah, my mom's Peruvian, but, well, I want to play for Italy. So who knew that he was going to end up being one of the heroes for Peru going into this World Cup? But it's a lot of that. It's a lot of the understanding of players. Well, we have to ride this through. In this case, it was the case. It was, hey, we have to ride this through and try and get the results where we can. And key results, first and foremost, if you want to go, I guess, in reverse, the most successful result they were able to get in this World Cup qualifying phase was beating Colombia, was being able to go there and reinforce themselves defensively and get the couple of opportunities they had to be able to score. The thing with Peru is that maybe they're not chock full of big names that play in Europe, that play in some of the big clubs in Europe and have had great form in European tournaments, but they are a team first and foremost. So when one player does go down, the next one comes up, and they've been able to be serviceable in their positions. Gareca's been able to pretty much take oil out of these rocks, if you want to look at it from that perspective. And that's what's made this team so cohesive and so competitive, despite the limitations that they have in terms of the roster.
Yeah, and you made a very important point there about Peru not being blessed with stars. Most fans from this part of the world who love Brazil and love South American teams, they'll only be able to name you a handful of outstanding Peruvian individuals. They'll start with Teofilo Cubillas, obviously, from way back, 70s, 80s. And they'll talk about Jefferson Farfan and Guerrero, but not much. But Peru have been an ever-present...
And it had nothing to do with this qualifying phase.
And that's the point I'm making. Lastly, before we go, Juan, I must ask you about Luis Suarez, because I saw his agent make a social media post, I think it was this morning or late last night, of a WhatsApp conversation he was having with Suarez when Uruguay looked dead and buried, and how Suarez vowed to score the goals to fuel them to the World Cup. And the agent was moved to post that screenshot to the world because Suarez came good on his word.
Yeah, he did. And it was kind of a saying goodbye. I mean, he said it earlier this morning before flying out to Madrid. He basically said, look, this is pretty much my last World Cup qualifier with Uruguay. And it kind of hit home at that point to see him be able to score in such a spectacular yet a very Suarez type of way throughout his career, having that penchant for the spectacular at times. And knowing that he's now the all-time leading goal scorer in South American qualifiers, surpassing his former teammate, and more importantly, the way he did it and kind of really ending another era in Chile, because we saw that with Arturo Vidal and Alexis Sanchez at a certain phase of in last night's match. Every time they got the ball, the fans would start clapping, kind of as went from a World Cup qualifier to a tribute match in the span of 60 minutes. And I think that's where we started to see that generation end. But going back to Suarez, he already basically said that it's pretty much the end, and we'll see what happens in Qatar.
Yes, indeed. Good man. Thank you very much, Juan. We'll talk again.
Take care.
Good. Just before we go, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, I just want to point out for the Brazil fans that their qualification and their dominance of the championship qualifiers had already been a foregone conclusion, so they haven't been making the headlines. But their record points total in South American 45. World Cup qualifying is absolutely tremendous, and the Brazilians, as we had said on the show last week, George, are sitting on a gold mine, it seems.
Yeah, they have players dripping from everywhere. Yeah. I want to make one last point, Mr. Producer, before we go. Juan mentioned Luis Suarez's record, and it's in your crawls as well. The all-time leading goal scorer in South American World Cup qualifying.
Surpassing Messi.
Yeah, that's a huge honor, given the names. I mean, some of the best players in the history of football have played South American World Cup qualifiers. Suarez has way more goals than them. When I was looking at the list last night, well, maybe early this morning, I was surprised I would have gotten this trivia question wrong. The head of the list, all-time leading World Cup qualifying goal scorers, is from CONCACAF. And it's not Hugo Sanchez. It's Carlos Pavon.
Pavon from Honduras.
Carlos Pavon, 42. And then when I went through the whole thing.
Yes.
And I found something that very nice, and I have to mention it now. Angus Eve, Lance, has more goals in World Cup qualifying than Kaká, the former FIFA World Player of the Year.
Angus?
Angus Eve has more World Cup qualifying goals for Trinidad and Tobago. He's number 128 on the list. He has more goals than Kaká in World Cup qualifying, and it gets better for Angus. He's played a lesser number of World Cup qualifiers than James Rodriguez for Colombia,
yes.
and he has more goals than James Rodriguez.
Wow.
Angus Eve.
That's tremendous.
Angus Eve.
And Angus Eve's role on the Trinidad
wasn't
and Tobago
goal
team
scorer
wasn't necessarily
primarily.
to score, wasn't primarily to score goals.
Yes. I think he has 13 World Cup qualifying goals, more than Kaká.
Yes.
He played some more games than Kaká, but he's played less games than James, and he has more goals.
Let's give him a call after the show.
We need to give him a call.
We need to give Angus Eve a call after. And congratulations on TNT's.
And that's why I mentioned it as well.
Caribbean Classic as well.
Yeah.
Right down to the wire.
Yes, sir.
But they won the Tri-Series. Back with more on The Zone after this.
Thank you for watching SportsMax on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and to click the notification bell to stay informed.